appropriations to agencies and things. And then
Okay,
the
does that
executive
include the Department of Education?
branch, yes.
Yes.
There's also federal money that comes in the Department
Right.
of Education. Also
Right,
depends
yeah.
on the. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything
Is
you
there a
can?
specific area in education that you're curious about, or?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. I've noticed that the DPI, this was awarded from the U.S. Department of Education. Let's see, the DPI got $13.5 million to open new charter schools. Why are they giving money to a private school? This money should be going to public schools. Although I'm not in favor of public schools because of all the garbage they're teaching in school, critical race theory, your LGBTQ, they're shoving it down the kids' throats at kindergarten. Why are they getting money?
For charter school?
Yes.
Charter schools are public schools.
No, they're not.
Yeah, charters are either chartered by the school district or by the higher education system.
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay, well, we'll agree to disagree, I guess. Next topic. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if you're confusing school choice private schools with charter schools, but charter schools are created by school districts and by the University of Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and that's how charters are set up in Wisconsin.
Okay, there's a charter school in Fox Lake.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the Walpon School District.
Okay, well, okay.
City school. Yep.
People are trying to get out of the public schools. They want to go to somewhere else because of all the stuff that's being taught in school. Okay, once these kids, see now the money follows the child, correct? That's why you got some districts having to pay other districts because they're losing kids.
On open enrollment.
Right, okay. All right, the money follows the child. So when that child goes into a charter school, that charter school will eventually be controlled by the federal government because when that child takes that money and goes into different schools, they get the same control as if the child was in public schools.
They operate under the same rules as the rest of the district.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so now that charter school in Fox Lake, they don't have any elected school board members, do they?
Sure.
They are all appointed. They are appointed.
It's an advisory board. They're run by the Walpon School District.
Okay, what happens if in the future the Waupun Public School just don't have enough students because all the kids are finding charters or homeschool or whatever? What happens to that public school then? They go away, don't they? And then that school board would say, well, we have more people in the charter schools, so we're going to have to keep the charter schools open. Public schools go away. Then there is no elected official. Do you see what I'm saying?
It's still run by the elected school board, and school boards make those decisions to close, like Beaverdam's closed all of their rural elementaries over the last 15, 20 years and moved them into the city elementaries. And so that's not any different than the decisions the school boards are making now. They're going to choose to utilize the schools that are the best buildings, the most, the best designed to do the education. And if that's the charter school for Walpon and Fox Lake or their new buildings that they've built or whatever, those are all local board decisions. Man.
The charter school has their own board. They have their own board, and they appoint the people for that charter school. So eventually these local school boards will be no more. I know the agenda. I've researched this since like 2013. I've been in front of school board meetings trying to stop this. Well, not trying to stop the charters, but trying to stop all the stuff that's going on in the schools. Did you know that, okay. Yeah. Do you know now that I emailed DPI. Okay, this is through federal funding. They have to allocate 20% of the funds to evidence-based improvement strategies to address the impact of lost instructional time. Okay, evidence,
ESSER 3 funding, yeah.
and I went onto DPI website. Evidence-based means they have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. Tier 2 says that they will, evidence-based means that they will implement a quasi-experimental research design. Then they're going to be doing mental health screening, and I've got this from the Wisconsin Department of Public Education. They're going to screen the children for mental health issues. I don't agree that should be done in school. You know, I know you had said you're in support of mental health. This stuff has been going on for a long time, and I did an open records request. Back in, was it 2015, I received an invoice from the Mayville School District where they were importing 750 students, you know, with the positive behavior interventions and supports and the response to intervention. It's a data warehouse. So they're reporting your children's data and they're putting it into a warehouse to be archived. Who gets that information? You know, I mean, that's private information. Here, I'll give it to you.
I'll grab it from
Okay,
you.
I'll give it, you can have that.
I guess I'm not familiar with the local decisions that Mayville's making on how they collect their data. And I'm aware of the ESSER 3 things that you brought up for the federal funding, but obviously that's federal money and
Yeah, they don't
the state
have to
doesn't have any
accept,
control over that.
they don't have to accept the money, and I'm trying to get them to tell them to give that money back.
Well, that's something the local schools could decide to do if they want to.
Yeah.
So I know you always have a lot of school stuff, so
Oh, yeah.
I'll stop you for a moment and see if Daryl or Gary have any topics that they want to talk about.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
or
go
folks
ahead.
from
I mean,
the
this just.
Village of Lomira have anything that
Okay,
they want to bring up.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And we'll get back to you if we have some more time then. So.
Okay.
Fellas, either one of you want to go or?
Well, I was just gonna touch on, I guess, 3 points. Roads, I got, 175 from here to 28 is in better shape than what the rest of the Mayville is. And I was just wondering why this road's being done 2 years before the other road. And at least that's according to the website.
It's a good question that I don't know the answer to. I'll have to
This
check with
road
DOT.
seems better than, and then all the voting stuff that's going on now, it's hard enough to vote. But at least, have you looked at an absentee ballot that you have to fill out if you want an absentee ballot? I mean, all
The request for it or the ballot itself?
the ballot itself. I mean,
my dad has been voting by absentee ballot the last few cycles, and I usually sign his envelope for him. It doesn't look, I didn't think it looked all that complex, so it's like name and address and.
well, it seemed, more complex than what it needed to be, so.
Okay.
Anyway, even with if you're a, person living at home, you'd have to go out and find a witness and have their name and address, and, and that's where things get screwed up once in a while. Because that witness isn't as invested in your vote as you are.
You do need to contact, have a witness, that is correct. But are you in Mayville or are you in one of the townships?
Town of Lomira.
Town of Lomira? Okay.
Yeah.
Because then you can also, I don't know off the top of my head what the town of Lomira does as far as in-person voting, if it's by appointment only, or if they have scheduled times. The townships all have different things, but you could also talk to your town clerk about doing it in person.
Yeah, talk to Sharon about it, anyway, that, but it's the standard thing that they send to everybody, so, it's quite an envelope, so.
Yep, it is, but there also needs to be accountability in the system.
Yeah, I know,
folks have faith in it, so. It's tricky though, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, the goal should be, easy to vote, hard to cheat. But it gets tricky. And it's more complex now than it probably should be as far as just not the work itself, but all of the outside noise is making it a lot more complex.
And I know you gave a lot of bills to the governor, and well, some of them they vetoed.
He's going to veto them all. He doesn't want any accountability and connections. So we won't be making any changes.
You know, even if the form that you get, if you show up for at the town hall for the election, the form that you get that day is the same form that you get in.
No,
it's not. It's hard. I don't think so.
Yeah, it should be.
You know.
The ballot's the ballot. There's no difference in that, right?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. The envelopes are, different, complicated, or at least have a lot of things to fill out, but the ballot's the ballot. It should be the same ballot.
Okay.
Now, you may have different ballot depending on where you live in the township.
Yeah, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that's
God,
complicated.
yeah. Oh, give that back. And you made the wrong one.
Yeah, that's gonna get worse if these maps hold that, for some Dodge County towns, it's gonna get worse because they divided up some towns and stuff, so, with these new maps, but not this area, I don't think.
Well, I spoke on 2 points, let somebody else talk.
Okay, I was gonna say that, I think that was 2, so you hold the third one for now, all right.
Yeah, I'll hold the third one. Do that time.
Gary, have you get,
I just have a couple of points.
okay,
First off, I'm Gary Moore. I'm a trustee for the Village of Lomira.
okay, super. I don't think, have we met before? I don't think we have.
We have.
Okay.
I'm not very memorable.
Sorry, I don't remember you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
My first topic is just your thoughts on local user tax. You're sponsoring
Yep,
a bill, I believe,
Yep.
right now, that would virtually eliminate the user taxes, or?
no. But I'm glad you
Explain.
brought it up, let me explain it. So the bill that we introduced is in response to some communities that are implementing what they're calling a transportation utility fee. And they're kind of modeling it after stormwater utility fees, and I don't know if Lomira has a stormwater utility or not. But those have been around for a while. Beaver Dam actually created one when I was on the council like 20 years ago. And when they create these utility fees, they do it so that they can capture money from residents outside of the tax revenue. And the argument for like the stormwater utilities is it's a fairer way to do it because you can collect fees, whatever you want to call it, fee a tax. You can collect money from residents that don't pay property taxes, like hospitals and schools, because they have these huge parking lots and huge roofs that drain all this water into our systems, and they don't pay property taxes because they're tax exempt. So you create the stormwater utility and you make it so the resident pays the flat, whatever that rate is you set, and then based on your size, you pay more. So in Beaver Dam, like Fleet Farm and the mall and the hospital and schools, they pay more in that utility. So what some cities started to try to do was dream up a way to collect more money for transportation and to do their roads rather than doing them on the levy. And we're going to create a system to charge places based on like how many cars might. So a McDonald's would pay more because of all the cars that drive through there. And your residents would pay like the flat fee. And if you had a big parking lot where more cars could be, you'd pay more. And that might be a way to collect some money, but what it is also is a way to get around the levy limits that are in place for communities. So right now you're fixing your roads on your levy or on a wheel tax. And under current law, if you create a stormwater utility now, and you have been using your levy money to do that, you have to lower your levy to make the difference. You can't go find a new way to tax your residents and not offset that. So this stormwater utility thing, the League of Municipality Attorneys are telling cities, and the reason I found out about it is because Waupun thinking about it, so I saw it in the Beaver Dam paper, and I was like, well, wait a minute, they're just trying to find a way to tax their residents a new way and not offset the levy. So we don't think that's right, so we introduced a bill, And we're not gonna move it this session because the governor wouldn't sign it, but I wanted the league to know that we were watching them. If they think they're gonna just tell municipalities that they can just create whatever way they want, just make up whatever way you want to collect new fees and pretend that like that's a bypass around the taxes. No, but it doesn't do anything to change current law. So if you've got a wheel tax or you want to implement a wheel tax, go nuts. That's current law. You can do that. Your board can vote to do that. But if you're going to dream up a brand new thing to try to get around your levy, that's what my bill says. No, wait a minute. So make no changes to current law. If you had a stormwater utility now, it wouldn't affect that. You can still create a stormwater utility. You just have to offset the levy, which is current law. It doesn't change any of the current things. It's telling the municipalities that are trying to dream up this new thing, wait a minute. No, if you're going to dream up a new thing, you're going to have to comply with the levy limit, just like a stormwater utility would have to. You can't just make up new ways to bypass that.
Understand.
Right.
And we're not by any means in the village of Lomira trying to dream up new ways to create ways around tax levy.
Mhm.
Okay.
I didn't think you were, but you're not the first person.
We have the wheel tax.
We have a user tax.
Yeah, and the wheel tax is fine. That's current law. You can use that. This
But under
bill
your
doesn't-
proposed bill, would that be affected
the
then?
bill
by
doesn't
reducing-
affect the wheel tax at all.
It wasn't, it's
No.
only the transportation utility fee that.
It's creating the new utility that would be,
Okay.
yep. So under the current draft of the bill, that doesn't affect that at all. We're not touching any current law things. We're trying to stop them from making up new areas that operate outside of the current law. So really, we're just trying to bring even the new things into current law to make it just like the stormwater utility. You could create it, you can make up a transportation utility if you wanted to, but you're gonna have to offset your
Offset,
levy,
yeah.
just like if you did the stormwater thing.
That's not in
Well, and that was our concern. We've just started the wheel tax, and we really haven't seen it materialize a whole lot of anything yet to move us forward. And I guess we didn't really see the separation in the two.
The wheel tax is a different statute. It's created in the statute, and we're not touching that statute.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
So that doesn't affect it. And you learned that Ashokan Township also reached out to me when they saw the bill because they're a little different because they're a town, but they went to a town meeting and got the voters to override the limits so that they could bond for more road work. And they thought I was touching that too. And I was like, no, we're not touching anything in current law. You can go ask your town members. So you guys can go to referendum. That's current law. You go to referendum and ask the voters of the village if they'd like to pay more for roads. This bill doesn't touch any of that.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Good.
But leads me to the second portion. Right now that we are capped. Our levy is
Yep.
capped at zero, basically.
You don't have any growth?
Well, we're allowed 2% of the growth, correct?
No, you're allowed all of your growth if you have growth.
Yeah.
The net new construction,
Yeah.
In the
yeah,
new construction. yeah.
which is not a lot.
Not a lot. You're small,
Yeah.
relatively
I
mean,
small village. Yeah.
And the issue I have is basically, obviously, our costs as a village are rising, okay?
Mhm.
Inflation this year, of course, is much higher than it was last year.
Yeah.
But I'm not even talking about that. If I go back 3 years roughly, 3 or 4 years, I've only been on for, this will be my 4th year coming. If I go back and I look at the actual money increase from tax levies for the last 4 years, it has gone up 0.4% for the village of Lomira.
A year or over the 4 years?
A year,
Okay.
okay?
It's not a ton either way, but it's still it's even worse.
Understandable,
Yeah.
but that's it for the last 3 or 4 years, okay? Now, our expenses obviously have increased far greater than that. Now, you have to agree.
Yep.
And what concerns me about the cap, basically, I don't have a problem with caps on it and that sort, but other states are currently, Ohio being 2.8% capped, roughly 2% in the Midwest are capped, is where they are. You know, you can't increase your levy by 2%. I'm not trying to change that at all. But the problem I see is, how do you propose that we keep up with inflation as a village when we are capped and our growth is only increasing our total levy by 0.4%? The gap keeps getting wider
Yeah.
Without any fluctuation, without any kind of leeway for us to do anything. We can't stimulate growth any more than we are.
Well, it's even a struggle of a level of maintaining. Nick Roscoff, Director of Public Works, you know, just basic wages, fuel costs in the last few years, equipment costs are just skyrocketing. So it's getting to the point of not being able to maintain a level of service, much less grow to meet our size. So road salt, for instance, you know, up $10, $15 over the last few years per ton. You know, just the basic necessities to keep us where we're at are increasing and we're held. So, I mean, as I'm very for fiscal spending, but we're not keeping up with our costs, and that's our problem.
An example, what we've ended up having to do is cut services.
Yeah.
Because we have to get it from someplace because we're at our max.
Yeah.
So what we end up doing is cutting services. This year, we're cutting a day out of our public pool because that's an area we might be able to save a few $1,000s. Savings programs for equipment have been wiped out because if it's not an immediate need for covering costs, we can't pool any funds, so we're always blindsided. I've always said, as a trustee, we are always reactive. We cannot be proactive. We cannot move ahead or foresee things. It's very frustrating being on this level when you know things are rising and you can do nothing about it, so you end up shaving services from your public. And at some point, it's got, I mean, anyone with a fiscal knowledge knows that you cannot maintain this. And unfortunately, our services keep going down, and we're at the end. So I'm asking for some help, at least some thought along this direction to give us a little bit of leeway to help us in this area. I understand the zero cap, other than the growth, is a great idea. It's wonderful for taxpayers. But without referendum, we are dead.
Maybe we could do, you know, there are ways around that with taking out a loan and raising your levy that way by the debt payment.
Yeah.
But also to be transparent and not be what, you know, people call shady. You know, is that really the best way to go about that? You know, so just to have more opportunities of being allowed to increase the levy or something, some help to municipalities.
Well, I think that was one of the things so there's a lot of things that come into that. And I think this is the first time I've heard this in Lomira, but it's certainly not the first time I've heard it. I've heard it for the last few years in Theresa and Brownsville. So you all are finally catching up with your smaller villages, neighbors, as far as the pressures of this. And there's a few things. One is Wisconsin's a pretty high tax state, and our property taxes are high, still high, and we probably have too many things that are on them, from local governments to schools, and so there's a lot of pressure there, and so that's where you get the political pressure of kind of where we're at and where we're capped. So then, you know, how can we fix that, or how can we get around that? The other thing that hurts you because of your size mostly is the way the shared revenue formulas work in Wisconsin. So we haven't been putting a lot of new money into there, but most of the reason we haven't been putting a lot of new money into there is because when we do, most of it just ends up in Milwaukee and other large cities anyway because of the way the formula works. So, you know, I could dump $100 million into there and you'd still be closing your pool one day a week because the small amount that would trickle down to these smaller villages and the percentages,
Can't keep that pool.
it doesn't, so that's the state system to support, but that doesn't really work either because of your size. You mentioned the, you know, exemptions to the levy limit, and you know, I think that it's something that if you haven't, you should explore. Your board should explore. Not to say that you should do it, but you have to figure out obviously it's your job to figure out what the village will be okay with. But like Beaver Dam's been doing that, And some people complain about it, but it's been getting them more roads and some nice things, and it really hasn't, there's been no blowback at the ballot box on it.